I want you to draw attention to this card, which is your note card to take with you today. And we have a verse on the front. And this may be one of the most useful verses you could ever memorize, or at least have it rattling around inside your head on a regular basis as you go about your life. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. We don't know exactly what that metaphor means, but it means it's something very, very valuable, and it's set in a way that makes it even more beautiful. A word fitly spoken. And notice on the back of the card is that little lizard. Remember the lesson about the lizard? That the lizard is found in king's palaces, that the lizard infiltrates and goes everywhere, and that's what we're doing. And that's what we're talking about in this series called Shine, that's all about light at work and using wisdom. This morning I'm really thrilled that a friend of mine is going to come and share with us, and he's Canadian, but fortunately I speak Canadian, so I'm going to translate for him, all right? But Fred Dyck is a friend from many, many years, and Fred, come on up, and I've asked him to share some aspects of his life with us, especially about this aspect of a word fitly spoken. So, Fred, I'm going to ask you, first of all, just to give us an overview of your entire life in a few minutes.
Yeah, my name's Fred, and I think, Dave, you're wearing a BMO shirt there, is that right? So, Bank of Montreal, in case you guys don't know what that means. So they're out in the U.S. now. So I grew up in Saskatchewan on a farm, and my parents both had a grade 8 education, so I had a great start. But they had a lot of wisdom. They didn't go to high school, but they managed to raise 6 kids, me being the second from the oldest. Grew up in a Christian home. It was a Mennonite home, so we had some rules. Don't drink, don't dance, don't go with the girls that do. And kind of like you Baptists, you know. But we learn how to dance a little bit. And but I always loved the Lord from a young age. I actually wanted to serve the Lord. My mother led me to Christ at a young age, and I had a great example of my parents teaching me about some crucial conversations. I call them, at work we often call them critical conversations, and so if I use that, it's interchangeably. Not that I'm being critical about someone, but it's critically important. So that's why we call them critical conversations. And so Mom and Dad mentored going back to someone where there's a misunderstanding and setting it right. And they demonstrated that to me, and I'll talk a little bit about that as being some crucial conversations, along with some other things. So, being very young on the farm, I always wanted more. I was extremely ambitious. I wanted to get off the farm, maybe, but if I was going to farm, it was going to be in a big way. It was going to be classy. It wasn't going to be this small-time stuff we were doing over there in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. But I was very ambitious. I loved the Lord, and sometimes those things clashed. So I had big dreams, but something I prayed often through the years was, God, make me like your son and do what it takes to get me there. Many times I regretted praying that because he did that. He used a 2x4. But I needed it, someone that was built like me, who was driven, wanted to make a lot of money, wanted to go places, achieve a lot of stuff. God had his way of teaching me. In spite of all that, I was able to make a lot of money. I was able to lose a lot of money. I was able to make a lot of money. And, in spite of all that, God's taught me about himself. And I have the spiritual theology, and he's given me experiences that make that theology real. And when you've got that theology that you believe and these experiences that bring that together, all of a sudden you've got something. Then you believe that God is who he is, said he was. And that he loves me. He cares about my life. And he really wants me to grow. And as we're talking about crucial conversations, I was thinking about Ephesians. God really sets it up well. Right away in verse 2, he says, be completely humble and gentle. And then in verse 15, he says, speaking the truth in love. And that's really what crucial conversations are about, true love. Not where I've got an agenda, but I really care about the person. I care about the situation. And if you speak the truth in love, you can almost get away with anything. I mean, you really can. I'm not talking about the do these pants make me look fat conversation. I'm talking about, other work conversations. And then Ephesians actually tells you why we do this. It says so the body of Christ can grow and so that I and you will mature. So Paul sets it all up. And I've heard Roger talk about why do people in the world use these principles? Because they work. They're biblical principles that work. And so here I am, very ambitious, go get an engineering degree, get an MBA, moved to Minneapolis by a Canadian construction firm. And I'm going to turn the world around and run the Western Hemisphere. I know some of you guys wanted to, so that's a problem. I should have picked the Eastern Hemisphere. But here I am trying to build projects, run the world, and God's got a hold of me, and he's going to teach me a few things. And so that's probably kind of is that enough background? I've got an engineering degree, I've got an MBA, and I'm in industrial construction. Right now I'm president of Marcy Construction. We do concrete foundations for industrial projects, power plants, ethanol plants, gas stuff in Bakken and other field places all over the Midwest. And did a little bit of commercial work, but mostly concrete foundations. And
so Fred, your industry, construction's known for men who they're really good at relationships.
Yeah.
They're soft-spoken and gentle.
Yeah, that's pretty much us.
Yeah, so I mean, you've really been in a boiler room of the crucial conversation.
Yeah, I've had a few, and I've had a few given back to me too. And I had some mentors, my parents and a vice president from Canada. Taught me a lot about business, about integrity. But one thing I wish he would have taught me more about is the organizational behavioral side of it, where we would have grabbed me by the necktie a few times and said, this is how you do this, and this is how you do it better. And but because that didn't happen, it came some other ways.
Well, tell us a couple of stories about crucial conversations, how they came about, and what you learned through the process.
Where do you want me to start on that one?
Well, I'm thinking about a guy that you met out on the field one day, and
okay. I told Roger this story years ago. Esterhazy, Saskatchewan. So we're building a power plant, and this is only, I lived here about 30-some years, but I did a 6-year assignment up in Canada. So I've been back now for almost 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. So about 7.5 years ago, I moved back to Canada to do this 6-year assignment, and we're doing this potash mine in Esterhazy, Saskatchewan. There's K1, there's K2, and now we're building the new K3. And K stands for potash in the periodic table element table. So, and potash is the main, one of the ingredients in fertilizer. So they're feeding the world, as they say, with this potash. Building a new plant, and our concrete ready-mix supplier, I won't use his real name, but I'll just say his name is Guy. You might say it Guy, but in Canada we say Guy. Guy William. And the only thing I got in common with him, we have two first names, Fred, Dyck, and Guy William. So guys are on my team, so I'm new up there, and tell me this guy's a jerk. And this guy's a such and such. And it doesn't matter what the problem is, he's got an answer why it's not his problem, it's always ours, or someone else's problem. And he's just really good at this. And I'm a street fighter. That's one thing I should have mentioned. I loved a chippy hockey game. There ain't nothing better than a good chippy hockey game when I was growing up. I just thrived on those. And so I dislike Guy, and I've never met the guy. And they're telling me, And so we're early on in this project. We're drilling these drill piers, part of our contract. You drill a big hole in the ground, 2, 3, 4 feet in diameter, go 40, 50, 60 feet deep. You put rebar in and dump concrete in it. And it's toward the end of the day, 4 o'clock. Everybody's already on overtime. We've got lots of people there, 120 men. We've got equipment on standby. Well, not on standby. We're working, and we're going to pour these piers. And I happen to just be walking by, and it's the very first truck for that day, and I see these big clumps coming out of the concrete truck. And quality is everything on these projects. You cannot screw up, because you get this 80-foot deep pier wrong. How are you going to fix that? Very expensive. So I see these clumps coming out of this truck, and I immediately, whoa, this can't happen, because an inspector, if he's here, is going to have a problem with this.
You're talking about the cement mixer truck. Okay.
Ready-mix concrete truck. And so I stop it, and so we affectionately call these things elephant turds coming out of the truck. And so I stopped it, and the guy pulls ahead, and I see him get on the radio, and I know he's calling Guy, the guy I don't like but never met. And he's calling the guy on the radio, so I walked up to say, what's Guy going to do? He's going to send another truck. No, he wants to come out and take a look at it. And I said, what's up with that? Get a new truck coming. We got people on overtime, equipment standing by, and it's got to happen. And so I walk around, and I don't get too far out of sight. I want to know what's going to happen with this. I don't want him to back up to that hole and dump that elephant stuff down the hole. And so after 15 minutes or so, and I'm a little warmed up by this time because I'm imagining what Guy's going to say. He's going to have all kinds of reasons why that's not his problem, because we may be adding an admixture, and don't you know, Fred, when you cross a crow and a kangaroo, you get elephant turds. He's going to have his story, and I'm getting my story ready. And so he comes, shows up, and he's walking toward the concrete truck, and I'm meeting him over there. And there must have been something about my body language that immediately, like, we're on. And here I am, 50-some years old, and I can't believe I'm into this. Like, this is stupid, but, we're doing the baseball coach and umpire thing, right? We're talking very enthusiastically, we're pointing, and I can smell that he's had a late afternoon coffee. I mean, it's right there. And Tim Hortons. And, and we're having this conversation, and we're just into each other, like pointing and this and that, and, and hollering. And it's just stupid. Anyhow, this is going on. So he decides to walk up the top of the concrete truck and look inside to see his elephant stuff. And one thing you got to remember, the safety rules on a site like this are very strict. You get above 4 feet, you have to either have a guardrail or be tied off. To some point above you have to have a harness on. Well, he doesn't think of that. And he walks up the concrete truck and looks inside. And he looks back at me. I didn't have to say a word. My eyes and head are doing the talking. And he knows I got him. He's up about 8 feet. And he broke the tie-off rule. And as a cardinal rule, you break a cardinal rule, you're off the site. He knows I got him. And I got witnesses. And because people are watching this gong show. And he comes down, and he knows I have him. He walks up to me. He says, you threatened me, and I'm reporting you to safety. And now it's going to be, no one else heard what we said. It's going to, he said, she said. He tears off, runs to the safety office, and he reports that I threatened him. And I can't believe I'm in this schoolyard fight. Like, really? I'm 50-some years old, and I'm back in 3rd grade. So I walk to our trailer and tell everybody what happened so they know. And they go, that guy deserved it. He's a jerk, and they're just patting me on the back. Way to go, And you told him. And that night, so I'm staying in the man camp up there. That's the hotel we got. And great, fabulous, glamorous life up there. And that night I'm wondering, like, what am I going to do? I don't know. Like, now I got to go through all these meetings, and it's just stupid. And so when something like this happens, if I threatened him, like, it can't happen. That's probably another cardinal rule. I'm gone. And the next morning, I'm driving back to the site. I still don't know what I'm going to do. I just know I got to fix it somehow. I'll look to my right, and there's his plant, a quarter mile off the highway. And it's like God took my car, and it just, boom, I went that way, and I drove to his office. And I said, can I see Guy William, please? And I could tell him who's here. I said, Fred Dyck. And she goes, So she knew. She had heard. And I walk in there, and God gave me these words. And he said, Guy, our relationship started yesterday and didn't get off to a very good start. You want to start over? And he walked through the whole thing. I did this, he did that, I did that. And I just listened and listened. And unless he said something really egregious, I let him get away with it. And he walked through the whole situation that happened. And when he was done, I said, Guy, our relationship started yesterday, and it's wondering if you want to start over. He said, yes. I left, went to the site, went to our trailer, told the guys what had happened. They go, I can't believe you did that. I would have never done that. You're crazy. Why would you go do that to that guy? By the way, Lee wants to see you. Of course, Lee wants to see me by this time to talk about what happened last night. I walk into Lee's office, and I start telling him that I had just stopped over at Guy's office. And as we're talking, the phone rings. He says, it's Guy. I said, pick it up. He picked it up, and I'm hearing the one side of a conversation. Yeah, Fred's right here. Yeah, that's what he told me. And so he confirmed from the other side what I had just told him. This tall Lee man, he's like 6'5", weighs 300 pounds, twice my size. He reaches across that table and practically hugs me. He said, "Can I go tell my client this is all taken care of?" Because everyone knows about this gong show that went on. And from then on, Lee and I had a fantastic relationship. Like, this thing was over, there was no meetings, and I just had to get over there and take the initiative and apologize. And it just worked so well for me. From then on, I had Lee's trust. As a matter of fact, I took up smoking, secondhand smoking, because I would stand in the circle with these guys who smoked, you know.
Now, who is Lee?
Lee was kind of the manager for the client on the whole thing. Yeah, sorry. And from then on, Lee was just, my ally. And I would stand in that smoking circle, and I'd get stuff done with him because he knew I wasn't going to blow smoke. I swerved into that pun.
Yeah.
Secondhand smoking is what I took up, but it worked.
So you really proved the proverb, I think it's Proverbs 17, that a soft answer turns away wrath.
Yeah, it was
And
a moment of growth for me, too.
And on a practical level, it saved dozens or hundreds of hours of meetings and people's time untangling a personal dispute.
Yeah, and then the benefits in the future were significant.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had other opportunities to exercise that kind of wisdom in dispute types of things. Can you tell us another example of when you've entered in a more proactive way with someone on your team?
Well, I'm thinking of Neil. He was a project manager on a different potash project, and if we had a significant-sized contract there, a significant-sized team, and Neil had got a promotion. He was a project manager, and he also had a senior project manager on site. And the senior project manager called me aside and said, "Neil's, when you're here on site, he acts professionally, and he's doing it right. When you're not here, he thinks he's big man on campus now, and he treats people badly, and he brings the women to tears on the team, and just doing stupid, dysfunctional stuff." And I said, "Well, maybe you need to try to work on it and fix it. You're his immediate boss." And so that went on for a while, and it got worse. And then his boss, Jeff, wanted me to get involved. And I said, "Well, how do I do this without saying you said this?" So I went around the whole team over the next couple of weeks and interviewed everybody on our team and very seriously asked, "What's going on? How are you getting along with so-and-so? How are you getting along with so? How are you getting along with Neil?" And I got a consistent answer. So I knew what the problem was. So I nailed down what it was, and there was no getting around this. And I told people, by the way, I'm going to confront him. And some of the things you said will come up. I may not say who said it, but he's going to know. But I have to do this. Because right now, our adversary is outside, guys. We as a team inside have to stick together. We have to work. It's tough on these projects. And if you're going to try and make money, if you're screwed up inside, the fight on the outside is horrible. And because it's rough the way it is. And so I called Neil and said, "We're going to have breakfast at Nicky's." Nicky's in Regina, best place for breakfast, by the way, when you're traveling up there.
Yeah, we go to Regina all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a joke going when my wife moved up. Karen Dyck works in Regina. And figure that one out. It's messed up, I know, but that's what it was. And so I met Neil over at Nicky's, and we talked about the job, and then I very deliberately said, and very lovingly, gently, I said, "Neil, this conversation is going to take a very sharp turn, and I'm going to talk to you about something that's going to be hard." And he's starting to brace himself, because I wanted him to know this is serious. Because if he didn't correct it, he's going to have to get removed.
Now, what's your position in the company at this point?
I'm called a construction manager, so I'm managing the civil departments, all the mining and the power work, that type of thing.
So you're a big dog here. He's.
Well, let's face it, no.
But you have coercive authority over this guy if you need to use it.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So he knows when I'm saying that, there's some clout behind that. And said we're going to have a very serious conversation. And I said, "Here's what I see going on." And he denies it, and I said, "No, don't deny it. It's what's going on. I've talked to everybody, and that's what it is." And then his face turned very red, and the blood came up the neck, and that's when I knew. He knew.
Now, this is about his relationships, not about his competency.
True. And I should mention, one of the reasons he had that job, he's extremely strong technically. Very strong technically. And everybody said that. But it was this behavioral stuff where he was falling off and struggling. So, and I just basically said, here's what's going on. And it's got to change. And it's got to change right now. And he knew I knew, and I wasn't going to change. When he denied it, I wasn't backing down. I said, no, you can't tell me that. Stop that. It's going on, and it's got to change. And he went to the site. I heard later, at the end of the day, from the other guys, called everybody in together and had an ugly meeting where he was bawling, and it was snot, and the guy said it was hard to watch, but he was making it right. And that day, his career was saved. Next day, he called me and thanked me.
Wow. So he humbled himself, and they received that.
He did, yeah, and they received it, and things changed.
As I recall the story, it didn't end there in terms of your involvement with him.
No, we would have probably a month after that, I had another meeting at Nikki's and talked about everything under the sun. And I said, this little personal growth thing we're talking about, is there anything else that I can do for you? How's that going? And it was a very short conversation. It's going fine. Thanks for asking. And let's meet again. And then I would say, is there anything else I can do? And he would say, let's just have breakfast again. And that's all it took.
So as I summarize these two stories you've told me, on the one hand, a relationship got saved that kept a project going and solved a lot of heat and anger and all that. On the other hand, on the second story, your crucial conversation really saved a career because he was headed for disaster.
Very true. And actually one of the things I said, Neil, here's how you're behaving, and I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to be big man on campus. You're trying to really project your career up and to the right. And what you're doing is exactly the opposite. And once he saw that, I said, if you work with a team, what you want will happen. You're just doing it the wrong way. And I just had to be that blunt with him. Grab him by the necktie and hold him tight and close, let him smell my coffee. But it had to be done.
And how old was this guy at the time?
Probably 32.
Young guy.
35 maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Young, up and coming, very young project manager, but strong technically, just behaviorally issues.
Any other story you want to tell us that comes to mind?
Well, you wanted to tell another one like the first one, where I had it. And then I got actually another one where
we like to hear about your failures.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes us feel
Self-deprecating.
better. Yeah.
Well, this one's kind of funny, too, because so Karen was going to move up to Regina after 3 years, and I had this little house. We sold that. I sold it, and I bought this condo, and there was about 20 of us in an oval shape, and I was right at the corner, and my driveway overlapped with another driveway. And there was a little gated community, only gated community in Regina. We were, like, big time. And actually what the gates there are for, I finally figured out, is to keep out all those people that said they were moving to Canada if Donald Trump got elected. So I finally figured out what the gate was for. Like, there's no bad guys over there. So I took possession of the house at noon, and I had all this stuff in my car. So at noon I went over there, kind of backed halfway into the garage to unload this thing, and then I was going to go back to work. And no sooner had I backed in the garage, unloaded a few things, and a car drives up, and it's the welcome wagon lady. And, and I didn't want to talk to the welcome wagon lady, but, I'm polite to her. Yeah. I mean, how many fridge magnets do you need, right? And so I'm talking to her, and then right next to me, a car drives in, and I know who it is. I know who my neighbor is going to be. So people have told me, well, she's Gwen Smith, we'll call her. And Gwen is in the provincial government. She's a minister of something or other. She's an ex-chief of police. She's about that much taller than me. She wears stiletto heels, so she's big time. And she knows how to show it off with her, and she's a strong-willed woman. And she drives in, and I didn't know there's baggage from the previous neighbor as far as parking goes. And I'd parked halfway in, so the welcome wagon lady parked way back, kind of in that little area where the driveway was intersected. And she introduces herself. Hi, I'm Gwen Smith. Well, let me tell you how parking works around here. Welcome to the neighborhood, right? And so she is in my shorts about how parking works around here. And she's thinking, that's my wife. All of a sudden, I figured it out. And then I was really offended because my wife was much better looking and slimmer than that. So all of a sudden, I realized she thinks that's my wife. I said, oh, that's Gwen, that's the welcome wagon lady. She's leaving. And So then she tells me what business her family's connected with and all this, and I said, yeah, I understand, I know that, and we do business with them. Actually, it was in the construction business too, and then she's done, and she gets back into the parking. She says, this is what goes on around, how we park. Then my Street Fighter thing kicks in, and I said, tell you what, when we have guests over, we're going to park over here, we're going to park over here, and over here. And now I'm pointing right at her driveway, and as soon as I said it, I regretted saying that, but. And I thought, oh, why did I do that? But my Street Fighter thing kicked in, like, give it up, you know? And so soon we departed ways, and I moved in, and then I'm looking for an opportunity to make this right. And her husband's in the garage almost every day. I'm coming home from work, but he's working on his table saw, and he will not look at me. And I'm looking for an opportunity to just get over there. And one day he looks up, and immediately I'm over there. And the first thing he says to me is, my wife can be very direct. So I know he heard. And I said, well, you know, that's okay. I can be that way, too. He invited me in. She wasn't home. I bet you I was there 2-3 hours. And he said, you know, I'm going to really like you. And so that was positive. And so I still wanted to set it right with his wife. And I know I'm going to see her next week because the premier has his annual fundraiser. And being the largest contractor in Canada, I knew we were going to be there. We'd have a table there, and I'd be there, and she'd be introduced. So I'd know where she's sitting. So she gets introduced, and I know, okay, she's way over there. And so at the break, I beeline over there, and she's not at the table. Her husband is, and I'm talking to him, and all of a sudden my arm comes around my shoulder and says, Freddie, how you doing? And I knew it was her. And so we never talked about it, but we both knew it was over. And so that was sweet to just get that done. Well, the good news in all that is we became such good friends with these people that we'd knock on each other's door unannounced. How are you doing? And we'd come in like for 5 minutes. It was supposedly 5 minutes. We'd be there for 2 hours. And they to us. And she would just share stuff that she trusted us all of a sudden. That she, you know, couldn't deal with or talk to anyone about because of her position in the government. And Karen started a women's Bible study through Leader Impact, which is professional women. She invited her. She immediately said yes. And to this day, is still in that Leader Impact group. And we became such good friends that when we moved back a year and a half ago, they came down. They're big Blue Jays fans. They came down to watch the Jays and the Twins play and stayed at our house for 4 nights. This summer, we were up in Coeur d'Alene where they've got a big boat, and we spent the night on a long 4-day weekend out there on the boat. So that totally turned around, and so just I saw my parents do stuff like that. Go set it right, and that's, you know, I saw my parents do that.
Well, what goes on internally for you when you realize something needs to be done, you know, in one of these scenarios? What kinds of qualities do you feel like God has been working in your life to ride back into the fire with these conversations?
Well, I've just realized it's not complicated what needs to be done. It just takes a little courage. So God wants us to
I'd say it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And I've watched you, Fred. And I've admired that courage because I think one of the hardest things all of us do is to go back toward the conflict, you know, with something redemptive. But anyway, keep talking.
Well, and I suppose it's the fact that I'm not afraid of conflict. I don't necessarily always like it, but I'm not afraid of it. Makes that a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. But sometimes not being afraid of conflicts is what sets it up, too. Yeah. So, you know, just, you know, loving to, you know, use the stick in front of the net type thing, you know, showed itself up on the street. And God's got his way of refining that, though.
Yeah, these hockey analogies I don't get at all, but
okay.
Never mind.
I still got bruises right in here inside of my thigh from the sticks.
Yeah. Well, so, you're in an industry that is known for conflict. I mean, it's conflict on the site, it's conflict about money, it's conflict about position, and who's the top dog on the hill, you know, king of the hill, that type of thing. And so how do you keep navigating in that realm, you know, as a believer?
Well, it's not always easy. Often it is about money. It's about quality. It's about safety. But boils down a lot of money, guys. Mm-hmm. I get up at 3:45, 4 o'clock every morning, spend an hour. Or take a walk, wake up, take about a 30-minute walk, and then I spend an hour prayer and in the Word. And I'm never giving that up.
Wow. Well, I'm just thankful that God has a lizard like you. That's a moniker of honor, by the way.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
know,
I was wondering where that was going. No.
that you have insinuated yourself into an industry as a believer. That when you just look at it from the outside, some people might say, well, a believer doesn't belong there. That's just too conflicted. There's too much profanity, too much cheating, too much all this kind of stuff, too much power. And he's got you right in there. Maybe one of you has a question for Fred before we let him go, and then we're going to have you guys talk around the tables. But
I don't know where we are for time, but
yeah. We got a couple more minutes.
Gary.
Yeah.
I typically don't make a big deal of it. Often the guys just know. Without that, like Tim Tebow I saw a clip the other day, which is I haven't used this, but I thought was good when someone was on a tee box and hit a great drive. I think it was Tim did, and someone said, use the Lord's name in vain, and use Jesus' name, and he said, loves you, after that, and thought that was fairly effective. There are times when I've said, it's probably better we don't use the Lord's name in vain. That's all the other stuff, the F word and all that gets used all the time. I probably ignore that. It's when they use the Lord's name in vain, it hurts a little more. So sometimes I'll mention that. But by and large, living the life, the intent isn't to change the language. The intent is for God to change their heart. Well, I'm just saying Tim Tebow did that. Someone said Jesus, and he said loves you.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. But by and large, I think the big picture is it's not the language isn't the problem. It's the heart. And to get at the heart, it's the lifestyle. It's the integrity. When I left Regina, so many guys came up to me and said, Fred, your integrity is incredible. And I didn't even know why they said that, but it's just the consistency of walking the walk, talking the talk. I didn't do anything great except I prayed at the Christmas party, but I was always the guy that had to go say the grace, but why do they know that? Why do they know that I'm the guy that willing to say the grace? And when I do, I don't just thank him for the food. I recognize God at that moment that everything we have here today is from your hand. So they can tell by that 45-second, 1-minute prayer that there's something going on between me and God.
Well, they can tell how they're treated in the office as well for the thousands of hours you've spent together. So, did you have one more thing you want to share with us?
Well, can't remember why I thought of this, but there's 5 incidents in my life, events that we can't talk about today, why God got me where I am. Like, there's so much more to be said. Like, it's just not. Oh, you asked, like, what do I do, right? Like, I went through a divorce. I married a Baptist pastor's daughter. I never thought he'd be divorced. I mean, there's a whole story behind that. I had 3 boys. My middle son got involved with the wrong kids, and there was a homicide, and he got scooped up in that, and did time in juvie, and very hard time for Karen and I. I went into business for myself, and I lost it. Didn't declare bankruptcy, but pretty well all my net worth was gone, back into debt. Almost embarrassing to say, but that was probably the hardest thing for me, the way I was built, to lose my business. I can't do business 101. Apparently not. And then I got a job after that, and I got fired when I was 50 years old. How can someone who works so hard and cares so much get fired? Because God wanted to teach me something. And then when I went up to Canada, that was my 5th one. I thought I was there for life with that company. I thought I might go to corporate, or then I wanted to transfer to Minneapolis where they have an office, and that didn't happen. And again, I was humbled. And HR said, Fred, you have exactly what they want. If we read this report and do this analysis, you're exactly what corporate wants. Then why am I not at corporate? Because God knew that I'd be tempted with, I would never come back to where my grandkids are. If I'm at corporate with all the perks and the money, and that was a shareholder, owner-owned company, guys are making huge money. And God knew I could get trapped up in it. I would. So he knew better.
Well, we want to ask these guys to talk around the table. So you got a couple of questions that we're going to put them on the screen and have you guys interact around your table. So why don't you tell us what those questions are, Fred?
Well, when have you had a crucial conversation? And what was the fruit of it? For your team, for you personally, for your own maturity? And then here's a tough one. What's a crucial conversation you need to have? When are you going to do it? How will you prepare yourself?
Yeah, it might be across the table. You never know.
And how you prepare yourself happens in that morning hour, guys. On your knees and filled with the Holy Spirit. If you think you're going to go do this on your own, it's not going to work.
So let's thank Fred for coming this morning, for sharing his part with us. And I think you can hang around a little while, and you guys talk around the tables about these two questions, okay? Go for it.